Ashe, greetings, grand rising, grand day, a good day, and goodwill to you all once again, my fellow natural native earthly humans the world over. And I must say thanks. Thank you for stopping by and listening to yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. Yes, you don't know that it is yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. And welcome to part 32, the continuation of my series of talks titled, Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, the land of people of integrity, can it be set free? Now, if you haven't yet watched or listened to part 1 of this series through to part 31, and hopefully in that consecutive order, I ask that you please do so before going forward with this part 32, or that you do so at your earliest convenience. And I can almost assure you that by you doing so, you may learn something new. Which is part of what this thing called life is all about. If you ain't learning something new, out with the old and in with the new, then you might as well go sleep for quite a long time. You may, by doing so, I can almost assure you that by you doing so, you may be reminded about something. At least you may get something to think about. You may get something to ponder, something to provoke your intellect, something to agree or disagree with. Now, the truth be told, these presentations are definitely not for everyone. I am also aware of the possibility, if not the fact, that some of you might be off-ended by the truth, or more correctly, by the facts that are enveloped in this series. But as the late Robert Nesta Marley once said in one of his most famous songs called Jah Live, and again I quote, "The truth is an offense but not a sin." And also, as the late Dale Carnegie, the author of the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, he once said, "Those," and I quote, "those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still," unquote. And for the record, I am not a con. And neither am I trying to con you, to convert you, to convince you, or to con anyone. I am just sharing another perspective on a lot of things. And in this series, I am sharing what I, the Mystic Philosopher, perceived and think I know that I know must be done in order for our motherland. I'll keep your land, commonly known as Africa, and by extension all her children, home and abroad, be free, be set free. Now please note, not for us to gain freedom and still under the domain, but to be free. Now, for those of you that have been listening to some, if not to all of my previous episodes, you will already know that my answer to those two questions, number 1, can Africa be set free? And number 2, can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? You don't know that it is a resounding yes, and much more yeses. And I have no doubt about such a possibility. However, the purpose of this series is to show you, my listeners, observers, and critics, from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective and I, spiritual, intellectual insights, how and when Burkina Faso, and by extension, we all African people, home and abroad, can and will be set free from the tyranny of the soulless creatures, the melanin deficient, soulless melanin deficient creatures, their imperialism and their colonialism. It was the late Maya Angelou who once said, quote, "The truth is no one of us can be free until everybody is free," unquote. And with that fact in mind, we both know that none of us Africans, nations or individual, Burkina Faso, if Burkina Faso is free and the rest of Al-Kibelan is under the isms and schisms of colonialisms and the soulless creatures, then none of us are still free. They are not free. So individual, we cannot claim to be free until all of us are indeed free. Now, someone asked me to please explain, having listened to one of my previous talks, someone asked me to please explain what do I mean by giving God power and making God alive and powerful, and not God giving us power and making us alive and powerful, giving, the other way around. And as we have been taught and are led to believe for all of, or most of our lives, if not all of our lives, yes, we give God the power and not the other way around. And to do so, I will have to quote exactly what I've said in that episode part 31. And I quote, should sort of get you in the mindset as to where this question is coming from. I said, whenever you pray to a God, gods or goddesses, Elohim, saviors, angels, prophets, and lords, etc., whenever you beseech a God, call upon a God, or invoke the name and names and the spirits and energies of a God or gods, etc., whomever, or whatever you may know, you may conceive or believe it, him, her, or them to be, it is you who are empowering that God or those gods, etc. It is you who are giving that God or those gods, etc., power, and not the other way around. It is you who are bringing it, him, her, or them to life and making them alive in your life. It is you who are surrendering your mind and your life to that God or to those gods, and thereby giving them the power first over you. It is you who are opening up portals and giving our enemies God power over you, and expect it, him, her, or them to work in your favor. Your own common sense, if activated, will tell you that that is not wise. Unquote. And I shall begin by quoting, to answer the question, I shall begin by quoting a very deep and profound philosophical statement from the Kabbalion, also known as one of the 7 Hermetic principles. In fact, this statement is so philosophically deep and metaphysically profound that it is not at all possible that I can even attempt to explore and exhaust it in 115 minutes presentation, if at all me or anyone else could ever exhaust it, period. So I ask that you please bear in mind that my use of this quote here in this presentation is just, call it a basic summary overview of what this, the first of the 7 hermetic principles, entails. And I quote, "The all is mind, the universe is mental," unquote. Now, from my perspective, if the all is mind, then mind is the all. In other words, the mind is all, or the mind is the all. And if the universe is mental, then it, the universe, is a thing of the mind. It is a mental thing, meaning it exists in the mind and is of the mind. Whatever we may conceive, believe, or think, we know the mind to be. So what then is the mind? Or what then is the all? Or how else may we describe the all? How else may we describe the all? If the all is the source, and the source of all sources, then the all equal the source encompasses nothing, anything, everything, aka all things. Therefore, the all equal the source equal the mind encompasses nothing. It encompasses anything, everything, and all things. Anything, everything, aka all things, and no thing that you and I can think of or may think of or not think of is mind, or is of the mind, is of mind and exists in mind, or if you prefer, exists in the mind. Now, from my perspective, no one of us knows the all, or no one of us knows all, or no one of us knows it all, and no one of us can know it all. However, we may know of the all, but not know it all. And by the same logic, no one of us knows the mind, or no one of us can know mind. However, we may know of the mind, but not know it, mind. Whatever we know about the mind is what it tells us, and what it would have us know, or what it would have us believe. In other words, we cannot think of, know, or believe anything without the mind. The all is mind, the universe is mental. For example, the mind tells us, or our mind tells us that the mind is that part of us that makes us think, produce, and process our thoughts. It is that part of us which makes us feel, will, or memory, or memorize, or memory, our intellect, etc. Now, what is the difference between the mind and our individual mind? The mind is the all, the cosmic mind, and our individual mind is a speck of the all, aka a speck of the whole. Now, to quote from one of my own songs, who we are is I, and we are I and I. Now, here's another simplified example. The ocean is an extremely large body of water. We all agree. However, a drop of water from the ocean is not the ocean, even though it still contains let's say, the DNA of the ocean. In summary, the difference is in quantity, but not quality or characteristics. The two are similar in kind, but infinitely different in degree. Now, everything takes place in the mind. It is in the mind we live and move and have our being, aka have our existence. Individually, we are just a speck of the mind, aka aspect, ASPECT, of the mind. Meaning, we have a peace of mind to gain and maintain peace of mind. We are in the mind, and the mind is in us. Mind is here, there, and everywhere. Now, the more recognition, attention, admiration, and focus, etc., that we give to something, anything, someone, or anyone, is the more alive, attractive, and powerful it or they become to us and in our lives. And the more influence it or they will have and do have over us and over our lives. Example, the more recognition, attention, admiration, and focus, etc., that we give to our enemies, the soulless melanin deficient creatures, the imperialists and colonizers, gods, goddesses, and Elohim, saviors, angels, prophets, and lords, etc., is the more alive, attracted, and powerful it or they become to us and in our lives, and the more influence and control it or they will have and do have over us and over our lives. Yes, the more you worship them, more correctly, the more you worship them. Take out the O and put in the A. The more you worship them, meaning it become a willing vessel of war for them. The more you pray to them, or even more correctly, the more you surrender to them and become a sheep, a willing sacrifice. They become their willing prey. P-R-E-Y, willing prey. The more you pray, prayerize them, and the more you glorify them with your soul's energy, aka your sun's energy, the energy from your solar plexus, the more you call their names and mention their names, etc., the more alive, attracted, and powerful it or they become to us and in our life, and the more influence it or they will have and do have over our lives or over us or over our lives. So, now hopefully you will begin to know, understand, you will begin to know, understand, and overstand why most of our people, our African people, our highly enriched melanated people, our highly enriched carbon skin complexion people, our oppressed people are still bounded, wrapped up and tied up and tangled up with the imperialists and the colonizers' religions and their gods, their saviors, their angels and prophets, etc. Now, hopefully, you will begin to know, understand, and overstand why they can't let go of Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus, and Muhammad, and the rest. And now, hopefully, you will begin to know, understand, and overstand why they will alive us. They will alive you for them, for the enemy's God, even if you're just trying to save them or to enlighten them. And that is the real and most deadly colonization, the colonization of the mind, of which religion is just one of its main weapons. At a much deeper level, this is what the late Robert Nesta Marley meant when he said, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery, because none but ourselves can free our mind. Now, please stay tuned, for I will have much more to talk about colonization, mental colonization, or colonization of the mind, also known as mental colonization, in an upcoming series. And by the way, have you ever noticed how since our people are being awakened to these truths and the realities and learning more and talking more about our ancestors and our ancestral spirituality, our African cosmology and practices, etc., and are again calling upon the names of our ancestors, gods, goddesses, Horatius, and the spirits and energies of our most honorable ancestors? Have you noticed how the kingdom and the queendom of Rome and Babylon are panicking and crumbling? Keep calling upon our ancestors, my dear. Any and every god, goddesses, Elohim, saviors, angels, prophets, and lords, etc., that we pray to, that we invoke or call their names, etc., must first exist and do exist in our individual mind. Whether that God or those gods, etc., are our own creation, our imagination, concepts, or ideology, etc., or it is someone else's creation, someone else's imagination, concept, or ideology, etc. It or they must first exist and live in our mind, the mental plane, aka the metaphysical plane. For example, someone else like our enemy's God can end up living and existing in our minds through conversion, through persuasion, through conviction, through inculcation and indoctrination, aka through intoxication, while ours might exist in our minds through genetics, through tradition and culture, education, etc. Now, the purpose of a God, as mentioned before, the purpose of a God, etc., is to serve us and to be of service to us. And by the same token, the purpose of our enemy's God, etc., is to serve them or to be of service to them. As mentioned in part 31, if or when you know yourself, then you will know that your God works for you and not the other way around. Your God serve you and not the other way around. You will know that our God work for us and not the other way around. Our God serve us and not the other way around. And from my perspective, that only makes logical sense. Whatever we give attention to, whatever we focus on, we magnify, we amplify, and we manifest, aka we make real in our lives. If or when we give attention to our focus on our source, our ancestral gods, goddesses, and our most honorable ancestors, then it is only logical that they will be magnified, amplified, and manifest in our lives, thereby caring for us, protecting, providing, enlightening, and healing us, while conquering and subduing the enemies, etc. On the contrary, if or when we give attention to or focus on our enemies' God and goddesses, their Elohim, their saviors, and prophets, etc., by calling upon them, by mentioning their names, by worshiping them, etc., then it is only logical that they will be magnified, amplified, and manifest in our lives, thereby abusing us, thereby enslaving us and subjugating us, humiliating us, etc., to bend to the benefits of their people. Their job is to look out for their people and put them first. And that is why I told you that in order to be free, we must immediately begin to reconnect to our source, to our African spirituality, and to our African cosmology. We must immediately stop denying and being ashamed of our source, of our gods and gods, our orishas, and our most honorable ancestors. For it is from them we came, and to them we shall return. Thus we must immediately begin to invoke, to call upon, to acknowledge, to revere, to pay homage to, pour libation to, and honor our source and the spirits of our most honorable ancestors. And I will also remind you that our enemies, the imperialists and the colonizers, are gladly and reverently doing the aforementioned to their gods. I told you that as long as our African brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa and our highly enriched melanin people across the globe, as long as we continue to trust mentally, spiritually, physically, and psychologically submit, pay homage to, worship, and pray to the God, and by extension the gods of our most honorable ancestors' enemies, who by extension and default are now our enemies, namely the Caucasoid and the Arabs, and all whom else it may concern, God and gods, the alien invaders, the colonizers and oppressors, etc., God and gods. Then as a people we cannot, and will never be free. And thus we will forever continue to be their subjects, their slaves, and their puppets, and their footstool. And as long as we continue to adapt and practice their cultural practices, revere their ancestors, and neglect our own, then as a people we cannot, and will never be free, and thus we will forever continue to be their subjects, their slaves, their puppets, and their footstool. Their feet will always be on our neck. Now, I run way past time, as you don't know. So I ask that you please join me in the next part, 33, for the continuation of Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? In the meantime and between time, here is willing that you be more and much, much more, and definitely not be less. Let no one be less you, but be more. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, 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 I say. And thanks again for your time and for listening. Please share if you think it's worthwhile sharing.